This is a shout out to Zeus Network, bro. I know real Crips and I know real Bloods, bro. They didn't do this to Blueface. They didn't do this when I was on set with Blueface. That's why Blueface was always around. I'm willing to walk away from a check and just say everything and tell the truth. I don't like it. I don't. I'm about to delete my Instagram.
You ever hear a celebrity claim something so wild that your brain immediately whispers, "Yeah, somebody's lying here"? That's exactly how this story hits. Because when Chrisean Rock finally opened her mouth about what she says happened, behind the scenes, it didn't sound like regular reality TV drama. It sounded like a secret slipping out that was never meant to leave the room. And once it leaked, the entire vibe changed. For years, people watched the chaos like it was premium entertainment. Fights, breakdowns, family moments turned into content. And everyone laughed, reacted, and kept scrolling. But Chrisean isn't laughing anymore. She's claiming her family wasn't just featured, they were used. And suddenly this whole situation feels less like reality TV and more like a cautionary tale. According to her, the cameras didn't just record dysfunction, they benefited from it. She's accusing Zeus Network of crossing lines, pushing narratives, and profiting off pain while calling it content. And if that sounds dramatic, just wait until you hear how deep she says it goes. Because this isn't about contracts anymore, it's about exploitation. What makes this disturbing is how believable it sounds once you stop laughing. Reality TV has a long history of turning trauma into episodes and calling it entertainment. And if even half of what she's claiming is true, this doesn't just expose a network. It exposes the entire machine behind viral chaos. Because when the cameras turn off, somebody still has to live with the damage. And according to Chrisean, her family paid the price for a long time. The chaos around Chrisean Rock and her family was treated like binge-worthy entertainment. Fights went viral, breakdowns became clips, and deeply personal moments were turned into thumbnails. Viewers laughed, reacted, and moved on without thinking about what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. Reality TV trained people to see pain as content instead of consequence. At first, the situation looked like standard Nessie television: loud personalities, unstable relationships, and family drama packaged as must-see episodes. That formula has worked for decades because chaos sells better than peace. But what people didn't realize was how much control the cameras held over the narrative. According to Chrisean, the environment wasn't just documenting dysfunction, it was encouraging it. She claims situations were pushed, emotions were amplified, and conflict was treated like fuel. The messier things got, the more attention the show received. And when attention equals money, boundaries become optional. She alleges that her family wasn't protected, guided, or even respected. Instead, they were placed in front of cameras at their most vulnerable moments. Arguments that should have been private became episodes. Emotional breakdowns turned into promotional clips. And once something becomes content, humanity becomes secondary. What made her accusations hit harder was how late they came. These weren't complaints made during contract negotiations or filming schedules. They came after the damage was already done. That timing made people pause, because regret usually shows up when the adrenaline fades. For years, viewers blamed Chrisean for everything they saw on screen. Every outburst, every meltdown, every chaotic moment was framed as her fault alone. But she's now saying the structure around her rewarded instability. When dysfunction becomes profitable, no one rushes to stop it. She claims that warning signs were ignored because chaos was good for business. Instead of de-escalation, there was encouragement. Instead of support, there was silence. And instead of protection, there were contracts and release forms. Meanwhile, the audience was trained to believe everything they saw was authentic. Reality TV markets itself as raw truth while quietly shaping every storyline. When editing decides who looks crazy and who looks composed, reality becomes flexible. And according to her, that flexibility worked against her family. As these claims surfaced, old clips started resurfacing with new meaning. Scenes once labeled entertainment suddenly felt invasive. Viewers began noticing moments where cameras stayed rolling instead of stepping back, laughter faded, replaced by discomfort. The first wave of reactions was confusion. People didn't know whether to believe her or dismiss it as another headline. But the more she explained, the harder it became to ignore the pattern. This wasn't one bad experience, it was a system. She wasn't just accusing a show of being messy. She was accusing the platform behind it of benefiting from emotional harm. That accusation changes everything because it reframes the chaos as strategy rather than accident. And strategy implies responsibility. Of course, Zeus Network denied everything immediately. No wrongdoing, no exploitation, no cross lines, just business as usual. But denials don't erase questions, they multiply them. Because once someone claims exploitation, the conversation stops being about drama. It becomes about ethics. About how much pain is acceptable in the name of entertainment, and about who actually pays the price when the episode ends. By the end of her initial statements, one thing was clear. This wasn't a rant. It was an accusation aimed at the entire reality TV machine. And once that machine is questioned publicly, the fallout is never quiet. Once the allegations hit full circulation, the internet did what it does best when confusion smells profitable. It didn't wait for clarity or nuance. It sprinted straight into chaos with reaction videos, stitched clips, and opinions delivered with Olympic-level confidence. Overnight, everyone became a reality TV lawyer with a Wi-Fi connection. TikTok turned into a digital crime lab. Old episodes were dissected frame by frame like they were hiding secret messages in the background. People slowed footage down, replayed facial expressions, and analyzed silences as if body language alone could convict someone. When the jokes stop and the analysis begins, the mood has officially shifted. Memes still flooded timelines. But the humor felt nervous. The laughs weren't playful anymore. They were coping mechanisms. Every joke carried a quiet "this actually feels messed up" underneath it. Comedy started sounding like discomfort wearing a funny hat. The narrative exploded because once viewers rewatched old content with new context, things looked different. Moments once framed as good TV suddenly felt invasive. Cameras lingered where they shouldn't have. Emotional breakdowns stretched longer than necessary. It started feeling less like documentation and more like exploitation with a production budget. What escalated the outrage was how familiar the pattern looked. Reality TV has been accused of this before, just with different faces and different networks. Take vulnerable people, amplify their chaos, monetize the fallout, and call it authenticity. This wasn't a new accusation, it was just louder this. Celebrity reactions poured in, but carefully. Nobody wanted to say too much, yet nobody wanted to stay silent either. Subtweets about boundaries, exploitation, and protecting talent popped up everywhere. Hollywood never confronts directly, it prefers to whisper loudly. Some influencers tried to play neutral and failed instantly. You could hear the hesitation in their voices, the long pauses between sentences. When content creators stopped joking, you know the topic crossed into dangerous territory. Neutrality sounded like fear meanwhile. Defenders of the network came out swinging, contracts were waived. Like holy scripture, "She signed up for this" became the phrase of the week. Accountability was reduced to paperwork, as if legal consent automatically cancels emotional harm. But critics pushed back harder. Signing a contract doesn't mean signing away your humanity. Being on camera doesn't mean deserving to be broken. For ratings, and suddenly, the conversation wasn't about one person anymore. It was about the entire system that profits from dysfunction. Chrisean Rock didn't backtrack. She didn't soften her language or walk anything back for comfort. Instead, she doubled down with clarity rather than volume. Calm statements landed heavier than emotional outbursts ever could. Her claims painted a picture of an environment where chaos wasn't just allowed, it was rewarded. The messier things became, the more attention followed. And attention is the currency reality TV trades in. When pain trends, pain gets repeated. As the it rate grew, people began pulling up other shows for comparison. Different casts, same chaos, same formula. The dots connected too easily. Once people saw the pattern, they couldn't unsee it. The denial from Zeus Network only poured gasoline on the fire. Short statements, clean language, no responsibility accepted. Corporate responses always sound calm, even when the building is on fire. Public reaction split sharply. One side insisted this was clout chasing and revisionist history. The other side argued that exploitation only gets named after the damage is done. You don't recognize manipulation while you're inside. You recognize it when you finally step back. Comment sections turned personal fast. Viewers started sharing stories about being pushed into situations for someone else's benefit, about being filmed at their worst, about being encouraged to spiral because it made good content. Suddenly, this wasn't celebrity drama hit. It was trauma bonding. Media outlets tried to sanitize the story. Headlines used softer language like disputes and misunderstandings, but audiences weren't buying it. Disputes don't leave people this angry. Misunderstandings don't trigger this much reflection. The most ironic argument was that this is just entertainment. Entertainment doesn't excuse exploitation. Laughter doesn't erase harm. And pretending viewers aren't complicit doesn't make the system cleaner. It just makes it quieter. As days passed, the outrage didn't fade, it matured. Less shouting, more scrutiny. People started asking smarter questions. Who benefits? Who gets protected? And who gets blamed when things fall apart? Influencers who built careers reacting to chaos suddenly looked uncomfortable reacting to this. You could feel the hesitation. Because if exploitation is real, then reacting to it for views becomes part of the problem. That realization hit hard. By the end of this phase, the internet wasn't screaming anymore. It was watching, carefully, suspiciously, waiting for the next move. Because when a network gets accused of profiting from pain, silence isn't calming, it's suspicious. And once suspicion sets in, every future move gets questioned. Trust doesn't shatter loudly. It cracks quietly. This wasn't peak outrage. This was the moment outrage turned into awareness. And awareness is the most dangerous thing a system like this can face. After the outrage cooled, the aftermath didn't come with fireworks or press conferences. It arrived quietly, which somehow made it heavier. Interviews felt more guarded, public appearances more measured, and every word sounded like it had been rehearsed twice before being spoken. When a scandal stops being loud, it usually means people are counting consequences. For Chrisean Rock, speaking up didn't magically fix anything. It complicated things. Relationships that once relied on chaos for connection suddenly had to survive honesty. And that's a tougher test. Telling the truth doesn't end pain, it rearranges it. Public perception shifted in slow motion. Fans who once defended everything without question started pausing before commenting. That pause mattered. Once people hesitate, the narrative loses its armor. The network's response didn't evolve much beyond polished denials. Zeus Network stood firm, calm, and corporate, the way companies do when they believe time will do the cleanup. No admissions, no apologies, no shifts in tone. But calm statements don't erase lingering doubt, they amplify it. Industry insiders watched closely without saying much. Silence in entertainment circles is rarely neutral. It's strategic, and it usually means everyone is waiting to see who blinks first. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of a conversation that might get louder. The real damage showed up in how future content was received. Viewers watched more skeptically. Scenes that once passed as wild TV now felt staged, prolonged, and suspicious. When audiences lose innocence, ratings don't crash. Trust does. For Chrisean's family, the fallout felt more personal than public. Once private conflicts become viral case studies, there's no way to put them back in the house. Every reunion gets interpreted, every silence analyzed. Healing doesn't thrive under a microscope. What unsettled people most was how ordinary the accusations sounded once the shock wore off. No secret villains, no dramatic confessions, no courtroom theatrics, just a familiar formula: vulnerability. meets cameras, chaos meets incentives, and humanity takes a back seat. The simplicity made it harder to dismiss. The conversation widened beyond one show and one network. Viewers started naming patterns across reality TV as a whole. Different casts, same chaos. Same incentives, same outcomes. When one story opens the door, others walk through it. Creators who once made a living reacting to meltdowns began choosing words carefully. You could feel the shift. Laughing suddenly felt risky, even exploitative. Awareness has a way of ruining easy content. As weeks passed, the outrage didn't disappear, it matured. Less yelling, more memory. Stories like this don't vanish. They settle into how people watch everything next. Every dramatic moment becomes a question mark instead of a punchline. The most revealing change was composure. No victory laps, no apology tours, no dramatic reversals, just quieter tones and slower moves. When people stop performing, it's usually because the stakes feel real. Fans didn't agree on everything, but they agreed on one thing: this wasn't just TV anymore. Once exploitation enters the conversation, entertainment loses its immunity. The lens changes, and nothing looks the same through it. Industry watchers know what comes next. Contracts get tighter, language gets cleaner, and chaos finds a new disguise. Systems rarely change overnight, they adapt. For Chrisean, the cost of telling her story wasn't applause. It was exposure. Exposure doesn't heal by itself, but it does shift power. Saying something out loud removes the network's monopoly on the narrative, and that alone can change the game. For the network, the risk wasn't cancellation, it was credibility. Credibility doesn't crumble instantly, it erodes with each unanswered question. And erosion is dangerous because it's invisible. Until the ground gives way, the internet moved on, as it always does, but the imprint stayed. People remembered how they felt when they rewatched old clips with new eyes. Discomfort lingers longer than outrage, and discomfort is the seed of change. This story didn't end with a verdict. It ended with a lens adjustment. Viewers learned to watch differently, creators learned to react differently, and the industry learned it was being watched differently. And that's the quiet threat no statement can neutralize. Because once the audience sees the machine, they can't pretend it isn't there. If this story made you uncomfortable, good, that means you were actually paying attention. Real scandals aren't always loud or obvious. Sometimes they hide behind contracts, cameras, and the word entertainment. If you think Chrisean had a point, say it in the comments. And if you think she's reaching, don't tiptoe, explain why. Now smash that like button like it personally wronged you. Subscribe like you're tired of watered-down celebrity coverage. That avoids the real conversations. Turn on notifications, because stories like this don't come with warning labels. They drop suddenly, and they always drop here first. This channel doesn't pretend chaos is harmless. We break down the systems behind the mess, not just the mess itself. We talk about the uncomfortable parts people laugh at until it stops being funny. Because once you see how the machine works, you can't unsee it. Drop your thoughts below and tell us what reality show you side-eye the most now. Tell us which celebrity situation feels way darker than what's shown on screen. And tell us what story you think is going to explode next. Because you already know something is loading. Scandals don't disappear, they evolve. The names change, the shows change, but the formula stays the same. And when the next just entertainment moment turns into a full-blown controversy, you'll know exactly where it came from. This is Celeb Insanity, where fame cracks, cameras lie, and the truth always leaks.